Most people buying a gun for home defense are solving the wrong problem, and in a war, that mistake does not cost you money, it costs you your biology. There is a sticker on most tactical bags in American homes right now: multicam, molly webbing, patches, and the people carrying them believe that looking prepared is the same as being prepared. It is not. In a grid-down scenario, that bag is a beacon. In a full collapse, it is a death sentence. The difference between those two outcomes is not the caliber you carry, it is the signature you broadcast. Welcome to Bullet Survival! We dig up what the industry buried and we hand it to you before they erase it again. Subscribe now and stay with me, because what I am about to show you has never been assembled in one place, and this video is just getting started. Here is what nobody in the tactical industry will tell you, because they cannot sell it in a $300 package. Survival in a genuine societal collapse is not about firepower, it is about invisibility. The loudest gun in the room is never the safest gun in the room, and the man wearing the most impressive kit is almost always the first man to receive incoming fire from a trained unit. The Bosnian War, 1992, the Siege of Sarajevo. A city of 400,000 people woke up one morning inside a military perimeter. Selko Begovic, a survivor who spent nearly a year inside that siege, documented what happened to the neighbors who grabbed their hunting rifles and decided to defend the block. They were located within hours, not days, hours, because a 12-gauge shotgun produces a sound signature of approximately 160 decibels. In a city with no cars, no generators, no ambient noise of any kind, that sound travels 4 kilometers in open terrain. You did not fire a warning shot. You mailed your GPS coordinates to every hostile element within an hour of walking distance. The data from Sarajevo is staggering. Civilians who displayed long arms in urban environments had a survival rate 70% lower than those who remained concealed and moved with a low profile. Read that again. 70% lower. Not because their guns did not work, because the guns announced them to forces carrying 82mm mortars. You cannot win that exchange. Nobody can. And this is the part that should make you angry, because the tactical industry has known this calculus for decades. They have never mentioned it once in a catalog, not once in a sponsored YouTube video, not once in a certification course, because the lesson, fully understood, would have you buying a pair of quality binoculars before your 4th rifle, and binoculars do not generate the recurring revenue that a new optics platform does. Now let us talk about the gear sitting in your closet right now. The 12-gauge shotgun. It is the most recommended home defense firearm in America, and inside your home, in a grid-down scenario at close range, that recommendation is defensible. Practical, effective range, 40 meters against a human target with buckshot. Your front door to the end of your driveway. That is your weapon envelope. The moment an organized element understands your position and establishes itself at 80 meters, you are outranged by every standard military rifle on the planet. The AR pattern rifle, the AK, the standard infantry issue of any nation's ground forces, all of them operate effectively at 300 to 400 meters. You have a scatter gun. They have a problem they can solve from down the street without ever entering your field of fire. The tactical gear compounds this catastrophically. And here is where the numbers become uncomfortable. Under Protocol I of the Geneva Conventions, a person who dresses in a manner consistent with a combatant, meaning camouflage, load-bearing equipment, visible firearms, forfeits the protections extended to civilians. A trained sniper operating under rules of engagement does not need to issue a verbal challenge to someone who presents as an armed hostile. You dressed yourself in the language that says hostile. That decision was made before the first shot was fired. Mariupol 2022, this is recent enough that some of you watched it happen in real time. Door-to-door searches, civilians with firearms found in their possession were processed as unlawful combatants, not criminals, combatants. The legal and physical consequences of that classification are severe. The civilians who survived in the highest numbers were not the ones who resisted at the threshold. They were the ones who had already moved their critical supplies, cached their defensive tools out of immediate sight, and presented as non-threatening when forces arrived. Invisibility was the weapon, everything else was noise. So why does every prepper channel, every tactical retailer, every big box survival store push the loudest, most visually aggressive solution available? Because you cannot patent the concept of being unremarkable. A gray man strategy has no SKU. A doctrine of acoustic silence generates no affiliate commission. What cannot be sold in a kit gets buried from public conversation, and what gets buried is almost always what works too well. Let us talk about what actually functions. The first principle is profile suppression. Your everyday carry weapon, if you choose to maintain one in a deteriorating environment, should be concealable, chambered in a common caliber, and completely invisible during movement. A 9mm compact pistol in an inside-the-waistband holster under a plain civilian jacket does not announce your defensive posture. It gives you a last resort option while your primary defensive asset, your anonymity, remains intact. You are not a combatant. You are a person walking. That distinction keeps you alive through checkpoints, through patrols, through the first 6 months of a collapse when the rules are being written in real time by people with heavy weapons. The second principle is acoustic discipline. Every discharge of a firearm in a silent environment is an event. It creates a record. Hostile elements triangulate on the sound, establish your position, and make a decision about resource investment. If you are in a structure, every shot fired from that structure confirms the structure as a point of resistance. In documented siege environments, structures identified as resistance points receive disproportionate response, not a squad. Indirect fire. You need to understand that the decision to fire is not just a defensive act. It is a declaration that invites a response you may not be equipped to receive. The third principle is intelligence priority. Evidence from multiple documented conflict zones, from the Balkans to the Levant to Eastern Europe, consistently shows that the most valuable survival asset is not firepower. It is observation. Knowing where a patrol is operating before it reaches your block gives you time. Time to cash. Time to evacuate. Time to present a different profile. A quality pair of binoculars and a handheld radio receiver cost less than $200 combined. They extend your effective decision range to several kilometers. Your 12-gauge extends your effective decision range to 40 meters. Invest in the tool that gives you options before the tool that limits you to one. I need to be honest with you about something. None of this means your firearms are worthless. In a localized grid-down scenario, a home invasion, a regional breakdown of order without military involvement, a firearm is a legitimate and potentially life-saving defensive tool. The calculus changes completely when the threat environment includes organized military or paramilitary units with indirect fire capability, air assets, or numerical superiority. The gun does not become useless. The context of its use becomes everything. A weapon without a doctrine for its use is just weight you are carrying. The ancient lesson here is not complicated. For millennia, the survivors of warfare were not the most heavily armed. They were the most difficult to find. Every culture that has experienced prolonged occupation, from occupied France in the 1940s to the partisans of the Eastern Front to the civilian networks of Vietnam, arrived at the same conclusion independently. The weapon you never show wins more engagements than the weapon you display. Two great civilizations separated by an ocean, different languages, different centuries, the same doctrine. Stay small, stay quiet, stay unremarkable. That convergence is not coincidence. It is the compressed wisdom of everyone who lived through what the rest did not survive. Right now, before this video ends, do one thing. Go to wherever you store your emergency bag. If that bag is camouflage patterned, has military patches, has visible mollywebbing or load-bearing attachments, set it aside. Replace it with the most ordinary civilian bag you own. A school backpack, a gym bag, a duffel with no markings. The contents can be identical. The profile is completely different. In the first hours of a serious collapse, the person who looks like everyone else moves freely. The person who looks like they are ready for war gets treated like they are ready for war. That one exchange costs you nothing and changes your survival odds in ways that no piece of hardware can match. If you have made it this far, you already understand something that 99% of the people buying tactical gear will never think about. The industry sold you the fantasy of the heroic defender because that fantasy has a high margin. The reality of the effective survivor is cheap, quiet, and generates no revenue for anyone. That is exactly why you had to find it here. Every share of this video is one less person who walks into a serious situation believing the catalog. Subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear what they were never supposed to be told. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is even heavier than this.